All right. Welcome to the Judicial Proceedings voting session on police reform. So today we'll deal with two of the bills we we amended and voted on yesterday, and then we'll get right to the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights, and we'll start off with Senator Carter's amendments. Just one little disclaimer before we start. The reason why we started with the packet of amendments on the LEOBR that we started with yesterday was because they were the only ones that were ready to go for consideration. Every single amendment that is put before this committee will be considered. It doesn't mean that one packet of amendments takes precedent or is preferred over another set of amendments. It just simply meant that we were reviewing those amendments and for later consideration. So there's been a lot of chatter back and forth with some folks that just don't understand the process of how the committee works, which is, I think, a benefit. This is a learning opportunity for people that are paying attention, and they can see how the sausage is made, so to speak. So this is the committee process, and so that, a set of amendments that were under consideration yesterday were in no line of order or preference over another set of amendments. It's just simply the committee process. And so just to assuage any of the concerns that people watching have, it's just how the committee process works. So I just wanted to make sure we explained that because there was some confusion and chatter over the night. So with that, we'll start off with a bill that we voted out yesterday. We just need to bring it back for consideration to change the title so that it is incorporated for the package of police reform from the Senate. So this is, my motion is to bring back for consideration Senate Bill 599 with the amendments. We had several amendments, but the last amendment was to add, I think, Senator West's name. The amendment, so that's the motion. If I can get a second. Is everyone okay with bringing it back really quick? Okay, great. We're just going to add the title, and the title would be...
So the new title would be Maryland Police Accountability Act of 2021, Surplus Military Equipment.
Okay, great. Is everyone okay with that? Okay, great. So that amendment is adopted. Do we need to re-vote? So, okay. Is everyone okay with voting the same way, recording the same way they voted before? Okay, great. Excellent. Thank you. All right, so now we'll go on to Senator Washington's bill, Senate Bill 74. Yes, Senator West.
I found a little error that Senator Bailey pointed out when we first talked about this, and somehow it didn't get put into an amendment. It's in the language that we imported from my bill. It's on the first page of the current amendment that we just got overnight. And it was, we want to include the words confidential and non-punitive, which were mistakenly stricken out by legislative services when they drafted the bill. So if you're all on the first page of the amendment we got last night, it would read 3-516A, each law enforcement agency shall establish, take out that bracket, a confidential and non-punitive, take out the bracket and the word and, early intervention, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I guess it's a policy call about, I guess, whether any of those things are
confidential and non-punitive.
I guess reassignment is non-punitive, but yeah, we can make that change.
Could we possibly review the specific changes we made, because we discussed at length yesterday, and I want to be clear? Oh. Very briefly, could we outline specifically what we changed after our lengthy discussion on this bill yesterday, just the bullet points, what exactly the bill does now?
So on Senate Bill 74, there should be an updated amendment in your voting packet. It's the only one for this bill. It's ends in 170/1. And if you turn to the reprint, it adds on page 1 of the reprint, under line 15, adds language that was discussed yesterday, that mirrors language from Senator West's bill, that would alter a current provision of law that provides that each law enforcement agency shall establish a confidential and non-punitive early intervention policy for counseling officers who receive 3 or more citizen complaints within a 12-month period. This is amended to instead say that each law enforcement agency shall establish an early intervention system to identify police officers who are at risk or engaging in the use of excessive force, and to provide the officers with training, behavioral interventions, reassignment, or other appropriate responses to reduce the risk of use of excessive force. It also provides that a system described under this section may not prevent the investigation or imposition of discipline for any particular complaint. Then following that on, I guess if you go to what is at the top right corner, page 2 of 3 of the reprint, this alters the bill's EAP provision. It strikes out the section, it rewrites it really at line 17 down to 27. That's the language that was requiring officers to be provided, as drafted, was requiring officers to be provided voluntary mental health consultation or counseling services before the officer returned to full duty following a serious injury, officer-involved shooting, accident, or use of force resulting in fatality or serious injury. So what it says now in the new language is that as part of the employee assistance program required by this section, before a police officer returns to full duty, a law enforcement agency shall provide 1, a voluntary mental health consultation and voluntary counseling services to the police officer if the police officer is involved in an incident involving an accident resulting in a fatality, and 2, mandatory mental health consultation and voluntary counseling services to the police officer if the police officer is involved in an incident involving serious injury to the officer, an officer-involved shooting, or any use of force resulting in a fatality or serious injury. It also provides, and this may be sort of belt and suspenders, but provides on the next page that a mental health consultation and counseling service provided under paragraph 1 of this subsection shall be confidential. I just want to direct the committee's attention that in the language that's, if you go back to your reprint at page 2, well, I guess 1 onto 2, the definition of an employee assistance program under the bill means a work-based program offered to all police officers that provides access to voluntary and confidential services to address the mental health issues of a police officer, and it continues. So there is confidentiality provided in the definition, but the language was added based on the feedback from the committee yesterday.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So thank you for going through that, and I understand it. But am I correct in thinking that when we added the part from Senator West's bill, we talk about developing a system, but we're not talking about when they're supposed to use that system? Like, is there anything in here that talks about having them evaluate as part of the reauthorization process? Because I didn't see that there. So we have this system, but we don't say what's supposed to happen with it. Am I right?
So is the question about the triggering mechanism for when
Beyond
the
the
system comes into
incidents.
play?
Right. I guess the whole EAP and incidents, but we have this system and we're not saying when it's supposed to be employed. Is that correct?
Right. It focuses more on what the purpose of the system is, and instead of specific triggering events for when it would come into play. So as you pointed out, the current system focuses on 3 or more citizen complaints within a 12-month period.
But we took that out, right?
Right.
Yes.
What this provides is just that the system would need to identify police officers who are at risk or engaging in the use of excessive force. So it's a little bit less specific in terms of when that would come into play.
I had that amendment yesterday early. We talked about it, and then we talked about, what came up in the hearing, just because of the fiscal concerns, and then maybe the utility maybe that wasn't the right triggering mechanism just for recertification, because if you
Right.
haven't, I think this it's much more targeted. There's a specific triggering, very significant event that triggers this. So it's more cost effective and more targeted. So maybe before it was a little bit broad. So
Okay, I guess it's also just a little bit unclear to me. There's this system, and this is the system? I mean, the triggering is the system. There isn't any independent system. This is it, right?
It's a requirement in statute that the agency establish the system. So that's what's there is basically the guidance and a mandate to the agency that they need to formulate a system based on this requirement. But it doesn't provide specifics beyond that now.
Okay, thank you.
So now we have an overview. Can we go back to Senator West's? You had a suggested amendment.
Yes, this was actually Senator Bailey's catch, and that is that in the drafting, the people at DLS struck out the words "a confidential and non-punitive" because it wasn't contained in the Baltimore County ordinance, and he suggests that we should re-inject those words. So it'd be very simple to do it. We'd take out the 2 brackets and the word and leave those words that are in the current statute, just leave them in there.
So what are the, so I'll, again, for Senator Jackson or Bailey, just, I mean, I think I understand the amendment, but for the potential actions that are taken, like let's say a reassignment or something like that, would that be considered to be punitive, or is that?
So, obviously, there's 2 sides to every story. So when you look at this, I'm sure an officer might consider that was a punitive action against him. But I do believe when we're talking about this and we are looking at this, we are trying to protect the officer. And so I think that, I don't think that in this situation, when you have these things leading up, that might be a punitive issue. I think it's more for the welfare of that officer, right? We need to protect him or her from the situation that is existing.
If I might add as well, look, I mean, that's part of that accountability piece. If I'm realizing or recognizing that officer may have a challenge due to a circumstance, then that agency head or that supervisor needs to make that decision and say, look, I need to remove that person from that circumstance for a little bit until we can get this done. So, and officers may look at that, but there's an interest that has to be protected as well. The public has to be protected to make sure they're getting the services that they deserve versus, that's more paramount than circumstance. So I'm good with that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the language on the first page of the bill is proactive. The language in the rest of the bill is reactive. So the reason why this confidential and non-punitive is so important in the section dealing with the proactive is what's going to happen is a policeman is going to be called into his superior's office. totally unknowing, and he's going to be sat down and told that he's being asked to engage in some mental health counseling, and the likelihood is, I would think, that that officer would feel threatened under the circumstances, which is why this language is so important. That it's not meant to be threatening or punitive. It's meant to protect the public.
All right, so there's an amendment on the floor. Is there a second for it? Second? Everyone's okay with that? Excellent. Okay, we'll adopt it. And then the final thing, unless anyone else has more questions or another amendment, we had a question about what the resiliency sessions, what that meant. So Jamie heard from the chiefs and sheriffs and was provided with the following answer.
So, Ms. Mansfield from the Chiefs and Sheriffs reached out. She indicated that the sponsor amendment to replace mental health evaluations with resiliency sessions was requested by the Chiefs and Sheriffs. She indicated that it further strengthens the bill and assures confidentiality for another officer. This is from her, not from me. The mental health evaluation of an officer is typically performed for a specific purpose, such as fitness for duty, and includes a reporting requirement to the commanding officer and chief and sheriff. A resiliency session has the expectation of complete confidentiality, except for whether the officer attended the session, and is used to facilitate an officer's capacity to prepare for, recover from, and adapt to the mental, emotional, and physical effects caused by stress and adversity. Given the confidential nature of the program, the chiefs and sheriffs felt this worked better.
Mentioned another issue that came at that same note, which was the cost issue. When we had talked about the minimal cost versus no cost, they raised that in that same communication. I don't know if this is the time that you wanted to consider that, but that was potentially a significant problem in the fiscal note. And they had taken, I think, the fiscal note from last year and put that in the message too.
Understood. Okay, well, let's deal with the resiliency piece, then we'll go to the fiscal note. What do you think? What does the committee think? Your thumbs up, thumbs up.
Fine.
2 law enforcement. All right. Okay, we'll adopt that then. All right, great. And the title. So we're going to change the title as well to.
The new title would be Maryland Police Accountability Act of 2021, Employee Assistance Programs and Early Intervention Programs.
So everyone okay adopting the 2 amendments? Okay, great. All right, we'll go back to the fiscal piece. So, Senator Heldman, can you? I didn't get that piece of the communication. I got the first part, but could you explain again?
I think the communication was that by making it no cost, it opens up the big fiscal note issue that we discussed a bit yesterday.
But it's a local cost, so it doesn't go into the fiscal note if it's a local cost.
Well,
It's a
they
state
would still
police.
be, yeah, it's still.
Senator, with all due respect, this is a cost of doing business, right? This is attributed directly to their job. This should be absorbed no matter what the cost is for the protection of the officers.
Well, the amendment's already been adopted, so we adopted it yesterday. So, committee's indulgence. What do you all think? Keep it in. All right.
The agencies absorb this cost, and they work that out with their municipalities, to ensure that they're taking care of those officers. So, a fiscal note is not something that we need to be concerned with. And I understand why they dance with the language, but that is what the agencies have to do. So
Okay. Looks like we're not going to move backward on that one. All right, Jamie, are we pretty much, can you now just give us once more what the bill does as amended? And then I'll make a motion for favorable if everyone is okay with that.
So the amended bill would be retitled the Maryland Police Accountability Act of 2021, Employee Assistance Programs and Early Intervention Programs. On page 1 of the reprint, it adds the language discussed about early intervention systems, but instead, as it appeared in the reprint that I provided you this morning, we would be striking the first set of brackets to return the language as it appears in current law, that it would be a confidential and non-punitive system. The term resiliency sessions would be substituting the term mental health evaluations in the bill, and the bill would also provide for voluntary mental health consultation and voluntary counseling services for officers who are involved in an incident involving an accident resulting in a fatality, but mandatory mental health consultation and voluntary counseling services in incidents involving serious injury to the officer, an officer-involved shooting, any use of force resulting in a fatality or serious injury. Additionally, those services would be confidential, and on the last page of the reprint, the requirement that this be at minimal cost to a police officer is replaced with it needing to be at no cost to a police officer.
Senator West. Senator West, since you had his. That was the other one. He told the other.
That was kind of like torn too.
I'll jump on there too. I'll jump on there too. All right, West, I'll jump on. West is going to jump on. Anyone opposed to that? Jill wants on. All right. Senator Jackson wants on. Everyone's on. Is everyone? Who doesn't want to be on? Okay, it's fine. All right. Everyone but yeah. All right, so everyone but. All right, so the motion is then for a favorable. With amendments. It's been seconded. Everyone okay? All right, unanimous. Okay, great. Now we'll move back to Senate Bill 627. Senator Carter's amendments have been prepared and are now ready for committee's consideration. So we're going to start off with them. So council's just going to go walk us through, just like we did yesterday, and then we'll turn it over to Senator Carter, unless you want to say something now. Okay, great. Okay. So, Jamie, it's on you.
So just directing the committee to page, it's Amendment 143-527/1. So if you turn to page 5 of the reprint, you'll notice that there's a new term being added under line 27. This is the term minor policy violation. It's defined as a minor violation of a law enforcement agency or policy, rule, or command, whether oral or written, that a supervisor reasonably believes is correctable with minimal intervention. It specifically does not include any violation that is the subject of a complaint made by a member of the public or potential misconduct that involves a member of the public. This is relevant because if you turn to, I'm just going to skip around and then I'll go back in order. If you turn to page 15 of the bill, there's a new subsection E being added under line 16, and it provides, this subtitle does not limit the authority of a chief to create an alternative voluntary disciplinary process for minor policy violations. Presumably this would enable the chief to divert the disciplinary process for those minor policy violations. So just going back to earlier in the bill, the next changes happen at page 17, or excuse me, page 7 of 17 of the bill. In line 25, this makes a similar change to one that we discussed yesterday. This had to deal, I believe, with language that, or comments from the state judiciary about the enforcement of subpoenas. The language that seemed to give them an issue was that the petition would be filed with the state court administrator. So this amendment provides that if a person fails to comply with a subpoena issued under this subsection, the chief may apply at no cost to a circuit court of competent jurisdiction for an order to compel compliance with the subpoena. There's also additional language that's added that provides that on a finding that the attendance and testimony of the witness or production of the documents sought by the subpoena is relevant or necessary, the court may, 1, issue without cost an order that requires the attendance and testimony of the witness or the production of documents, and 2, impose punishment for failure to obey the order. On page 9 of the reprint, line 24, there's new language being added. This clarifies the time frame that the chief is required to determine and impose discipline or order a hearing. So it provides in line 23, within 10 business days after a meeting held under this section, this is the meeting with the officer, or within 10 business days after the law enforcement officer waives the right to a meeting, the chief or the chief's designee shall determine and impose the disciplinary action, if any, to be taken against the law enforcement officer. If the chief or the chief's designee finds that there are contested issues of fact relating to the proposed imposition of a disciplinary action, order a hearing. Or there's new language being added for a number 3. If the chief or chief's designee determines that the investigation is incomplete, direct a continued investigation. There is new language being added by the amendment to page 10 of the reprint. This is in 3106. It provides that for the appointment of the hearing officer, if the chief appoints a law enforcement officer to serve as the hearing officer must be of a rank higher than the rank of the law enforcement officer subject to disciplinary action. On page 11, there's conforming amendment language that conforms it to the language I described earlier about enforcement of subpoenas, and also the language that was pointed out by the judiciary. And the last item to note is back again on page 15. This is under line 16. There's a provision added that provides that this subtitle does not limit the authority of a chief to regulate the competent and efficient operation and management of a law enforcement agency by any reasonable means, including transfer and reassignment of a law enforcement officer if, 1, the action is not punitive in nature, and 2, the chief determines the action to be in the best interests of the internal management of the law enforcement agency. So this actually mirrors if not exactly, very similarly to provisions that are in the existing LEOBR. But that is the changes made by the amendment.
Thank you, Jamie. Senator Carter, you want to start us off? Want to go one by one?
Move the adoption of the amendments. But I think, hold up, now my page dropped, sorry, self-explanatory. The First Amendment, I mean, I have to take questions because I think it's first self-explanatory. The concept of taking minimal corrective action that doesn't rise to the level of the processes that are laid out in here is essentially what the First Amendment is designed to do.
So anyway, this we can do. Let's go through one by one, discuss them, and we can adopt. Vote for adoption just one by one. Just go systematically through. So.
So that relates to, where's the part that one relates to, further back, what page?
That was on
15?
for minor policy violations?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I see, oh, line, okay, way down there, okay.
So that's the new language being added in subsection E.
This just allows them to establish an alternative process for discipline for that, for the minor.
Right, it provides that the subtitle doesn't limit their authority to do that.
It's not really different than currently, like, there are certain situations now where under the LEOBR doesn't apply, it doesn't attach in certain very minor instances. So this is only designed to continue to keep that.
Senator West, you have a question?
No, I don't. I was waiting to turn thumbs up or thumbs down.
Okay, got it. Everyone understands?
We're going the first one now.
Yeah, we're just doing one by one. I'll wait for. Everyone's had a chance to review. Senator Carter, do you have a motion for this amendment?
Motion to adopt this amendment. Second.
It's been seconded. Looking around the room. We do a roll call.
Minor policy violation.
Yeah, this is the minor policy violations, yeah.
Which amendment number?
This is amendment, what's one of a grander amendment?
So is it the whole amendment?
No, just the minor policy violation.
So it's Amendment 143. The amendment number is 143527/1, and this is just the provision relating to minor policy violations. So that appears in the reprint at page 5, line 27, and then page 15 in after line 16, the new subsection E.
Just do a roll call.
Vice Chair Waldstreicher.
Yes.
Senator Lee.
Yes.
Senator Castley.
Yes.
Senator Heddleman.
Yes.
Senator West.
Yes.
Senator Sidnor.
Yes.
Senator Jackson.
Yes.
Senator Bailey.
Yes.
Senator Carter.
Yes.
Senator Huff.
Yes.
Chairman Smith.
Yes. All right, Jim, let's go to amendment number 2. Use one more recap, and then we'll have Senator Carter, if you want to make a comment.
So going down the list is would be page 7, and then also on this is the language relating to subpoenas. So this would be page 7, line 27, and also page 11 after line 4. This is the language about that's altering the petition going to the state court administrator, instead saying that the petition would be filed by the chief with the circuit court, and also providing that on a finding that the attendance and testimony of the witness or the production of documents sought is relevant and necessary, the court may issue without cost an order that requires the attendance and testimony of witnesses or the production of documents, and 2, impose punishment for failure to obey the order.
Amendment number 2. Same packet of amendments, so it's just the second one down. Starts on page 7. Page 7, line 25, down to 28.
Right, so page 7, line 25, and then the same language appears again in the amendments at page 11 at line 2.
Language that the judiciary complained about that we also discussed briefly yesterday, and clarifies that we're talking about the circuit court of competent jurisdiction. The other language related to the determination of whether to enforce the request for a subpoena is already current law, what the courts do in determining whether or not to uphold the issuance of a subpoena, to compel it.
I'm just trying to figure out procedurally. I think I need to open it up because I got stuff printed out in front of me, not what we're talking on. So we're not.
We're talking at this stage of the bill. We're talking about the investigation phase.
I'm just trying to figure out the amendment. What amendment we're working off of? That's it. So the amendment number.
Sorry, Senator. It's still the same packet number. It's 143527/1. I'm just working through each.
All right.
Each element
I thought
of
we had.
it.
So we did not adopt that whole amendment. Okay.
No, we just adopted the first part of that amendment.
Okay.
So he
All right, I understand.
separated it, yep. Senator Castley had a question.
I just think when we do the law, it's try to not redo things that have already been done. I mean, this is a fairly, subpoenaing records for an administrative hearing is done all the time. And I think rather than rewrite this, it would be controlled by rule, I think it's 2510 of the Maryland rules, which authorizes the court to, they hold the hearing, they say if you're in contempt, they can issue any of the, any of the usual sanctions for contempt. I don't know that we really need to restate all of that. You've corrected that it's the circuit court for an order in compliance with the subpoena. We could clarify that. If you said a person fails to necessary to
necessarily spell out what a court factors for determining whether to compel the issuance of a subpoena. Like, I agree, doesn't, that doesn't matter.
I would just like make a reference to the subpoena would be
So
ruled
it's
under
not,
Maryland
it's not
rules.
essential that the language is there. To me, it was just clarifying.
Yeah, it would be under the rules for circuit court rules
Or
for
necessary.
attendance of a subpoena at a trial or deposition. Right? Can we just do something like that, Jamie?
Can you explain where the language came from?
Right,
on page 7, line 27, the part here about violating a subpoena and all that, that's, if we just mirror Rule 2510 on subpoenas for trial and for deposition, and just indicate that you would apply to the court and for a hearing, that you would apply to the court for enforcement of the subpoena as allowed under the Maryland rules for attendance of a subpoena at deposition or trial.
Sure. I just wanted to point out, Senator, actually that language, I did a search in the code to see if it appeared anywhere else. So actually in the current State Correctional Officers Bill of Rights, which is 10909 of the, this provision appears in 10909 of the Correctional Services article. It looks like that language is verbatim in there from the subpoena provisions. So it looks like what the amendment is doing is actually conforming it to Correctional Officers Bill of Rights language.
It says punishment?
Right.
I'm just really shocked to see the word punishment. We normally talk about sanctions and not punishments for violating a subpoena.
So the and there are actually other provisions of the code that deal with subpoena issuance and enforcement. And actually, I think that the language as it's written in the bill originally was lifted from one of those other provisions. But evidently, there were issues that the judiciary had pointed out with that. But right there, this is just another iteration. It looks like as far as how it's laid out. But it does say impose punishment for failure to obey.
It does say that in the.
It does.
I would just move that we change that to sanctions. I mean, you don't.
First, to you.
I was going to say the language. I think Jamie said it. Maybe I was talking. Sorry to Senator Bailey. It's in. This is the language pulled out of the current law. Correct, Jamie? Yes.
Correctional Officers Bill of Rights. But now that I'm going down my search bar here, it does also look like it appears in 3, or similar language appears in 3107 of the Public Safety article, which is LEOBR, but I don't see the punishment provision mentioned in LEOBR. It just says that the court may issue without cost an order that requires the attendance and testimony of a witness. Oh, excuse me. The current LEOBR provides failure to obey the order may be punished by the court as contempt.
Just not what usual way to put it. Okay. I'm fine then.
Without further discussion, Senator Carter, do you have a motion?
I'd move the amendment.
Second.
We'll do a roll call. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Just amendment. Second amendment.
Yeah. Just Jamie, could you please click?
Right. So this would apply just to the amendment that's found on pages 7 and 11. So it's the language, striking language about filing the petition with the state court administrator, and it's also the language on both pages 7 and 11 adding the text that provides for the enforcement of failure to comply with the subpoena.
And the second one's for a hearing? Is that why this is in there twice?
Getting to do this.
Right, so page 7, that's the investigative subpoena?
Right,
and then-
that would be for furtherance of the investigation,
Okay.
that the chief,
All right, and then this second one is because you're at the hearing.
right,
Okay.
Vice Chair Waldstraper,
Yes.
Senator Lee,
Yes.
Senator Castley,
Oh, yes.
Senator Heddleman,
Yes.
Senator West,
Yes.
Senator Sidnor,
Yes.
Senator Jackson,
Yes.
Senator Bailey,
Yes.
Senator Carter,
Yes.
Senator Huff,
Yes.
Chairman Smith.
Yes.
The next part of the amendment is on page 9 and line 2, and then language also being added in line 24. Let me just turn to the reprint. So I actually may have skipped over this in our earlier summary, but this amendment, if you look at page 9 of the reprint in line 2, this is the provision saying that the chief needs to give the law enforcement officer an opportunity to identify in writing any contested issues of law or fact related to proposed disciplinary action or factual conclusions that followed the investigation. This specifies that that opportunity needs to be taken within 30 days from receipt of the investigative file. And again, that's language in line 2.
Just to be clear, this doesn't change the process of investigation. It's just talking about the actual material that's born out of that investigation. Right? It's just to be clear, it doesn't touch that.
Right. No, this pertains to the law enforcement officer actually identifying and writing those contested issues of law or fact.
Senator West.
As far as this goes, I'm fine with it. But this sort of, it references this meeting, and what we heard yesterday from the Fraternal Order of Police is that a meeting is not necessary. As I read the bill in general, the police chief is going to have made his mind up and proposed discipline before a meeting, and then after the meeting, we go to the hearing. And I sort of agree with Fraternal Order of Police. My guess is that in very few cases is a meeting with the policeman going to change the decision of the police chief, and so it seems like a waste of time. So this sort of harkens to within 10 days after the meeting. I'm happy to leave it in right now, but I hope later on we consider the proposal of Fraternal Order of Police to get rid of the meeting altogether.
Understood. Like I said, we'll consider every amendment that's before us, so.
Okay, that's fine.
Further discussion, Senator Carter, anything else? Pretty self-explanatory?
Sorry, I think it's self-explanatory. I mean, I think the time frame is reasonable, and I would move the amendment.
If I could just clarify to Senator West's question, so this relates more to the investigative file having been delivered to the officer than it does the meeting. So it's within 30 days of receipt of the investigative file, the officer's going back and responding to the notice that they've been given about what they could be charged with, what the potential penalties are. That is on, if you look at page 8, that information that's delivered to them at the top of the page. Each offense with the officer is subject to disciplinary action, the possible disciplinary action that may be imposed, and the proposed action for each offense. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Language. We'll get to the meeting issue later on.
When we're voting on these amendments, we could then come back with an amendment later on, right? We're just saying, if this is the very version, you go, okay, I'm fine then.
I mean, this is, I know we're getting close to that process, but this is just talking about the product
Fine.
that's born
Okay,
out of the
okay, as long as
process.
I understand the
It doesn't touch-
process we're doing. I'm
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Senator Bailey.
I guess that was my, that was pretty much my question, because if we're just talking about the 30 days, but by accepting an amendment like this, we don't, obviously I want to talk about the process that gets us to the 30 days, right? So I just want to make sure that we're not accepting by the 30 days where the officer has to do it, right, that we're not accepting anything prior to that.
No, like I said, this is just the product of that process. The process, we're getting close, right? But we haven't touched it yet.
Okay.
Senator Carter's made a motion for favorable. And Senator Heddleman has seconded.
Vice Chair Waldstreicher.
Yes.
Senator Lee.
Yes.
Senator Cassidy.
Yes.
Senator Heddleman.
Yes.
Senator West.
Yes.
Senator Sidnor.
Yes.
Senator Jackson.
Yes.
Senator Bailey.
Yes.
Senator Carter.
Yes.
Senator Huff.
Yes.
Chairman Smith.
Yes.
This is a scheduling note. I just got an email from President Ferguson that we're going to have a second session today at 5 o'clock this afternoon. So we're going to have some considerable time between the two sessions. And if we want to have a meeting here for more voting, I might suggest we consider doing it between the two sessions.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't realize it. So yeah, initially I thought it was to end by 5, but I think if we can do it before, that's great.
Yeah, the only caveat I'll put in is that would please give us a little break for lunch.
Lunch. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Since we can't eat here anymore. I didn't eat breakfast. I'm looking at the schedule now. I'm like,
Wait, all right. So that begs the question. So we have to be on the floor at 12.
Yeah.
We could be on there for 2 hours.
Yeah.
We probably will be there for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Folks need to eat. All right. Let's do this. Let's do this one last. Actually, well, we've got a lot more to go.
I mean, we can keep going all the way up to session. I'm just saying after session, if we can then
Yeah,
take
you get
a
eat. Yeah, absolutely.
half hour before we come back.
So I'll buffer. You want before session, right? To eat.
It could be a 2-hour session and we haven't had lunch yet. That can be kind of painful.
All right. Let's push.
Whatever.
Let's push this. Let's go with this one more amendment, and we'll reevaluate. Senator West, yes.
Not much more left in this particular set of amendments. But another scheduling note, we've just been notified that the Republican caucus is going to meet at 20 minutes before noon.
So that gives us 20 minutes here. Well, 10 minutes really. Let's push through the rest of this packet, and then let's get out of here for lunch. And the room will be cleaned while we are gone. So please take your stuff because it's going to get sanitized when you leave your desk. Okay, Jamie.
Still on page 9 of the bill, or of the reprint rather, if you go down to line 23 and 24, this provision the existing provision provides that within 10 days after a meeting held under this section, so this is the meeting, the chief or the chief's designee shall determine and impose a disciplinary action, if any, to be taken against the law enforcement officer or the chief designee finds that there are contested issues of fact relating to the proposed imposition of disciplinary action, order a hearing. What this adds is language that provides for waiver. So these requirements would come into play within 10 business days after a law enforcement officer waives the right to a meeting, not just after having the meeting. And it also provides language relating to the chief or the chief's designee. So it's not always the chief that's performing actions under the bill. The chief's designee is able to impose discipline short of termination. So that's what that's accounting for. We're on page 9, down at between lines 23 and 27.
Senator Carter, you want to say anything else?
Well, again, I think it's self-explanatory. I think it improves the bill because it contemplates a law enforcement officer that chooses to waive the meeting altogether, and it sets a clear, it keeps the same time frame of 10 days, which I think helps streamline the process. So I move the amendment.
All right, you've got an amendment's been seconded. Further discussion before you take the vote. Okay.
Vice Chair Waldstreicher.
Yes.
Senator Lee.
Yes.
Senator Castley.
Yes.
Senator Heddleman.
Yes.
Senator West.
Yes.
Senator Sidnor.
Yes.
Senator Jackson.
Yes.
Senator Bailey.
Yes.
Senator Carter.
Yes.
Senator Huff.
Yes.
Chairman Smith.
Yes.
Page 9 of 17 of the reprint, just below the language that was just discussed, you'll see that it adds an option for the chief or the chief's designee to determine that the investigation was incomplete, and they may direct a continued investigation.
All right, so no further discussion there. I see Senator West has moved the amendment.
Second.
It's been seconded by the vice chair. Further discussion? Okay.
Vice Chair Waldstreicher.
Yes.
Senator Lee.
Yes.
Senator Castley.
Yes.
Senator Heddleman.
Yes.
Senator West.
Yes.
Senator Sidnor.
Yes.
Senator Jackson.
Yes.
Senator Bailey.
Yes.
Senator Carter.
Yes.
Senator Huff.
Yes.
Chairman Smith.
Yes.
So the next change is on page 10. This is below line 18. It provides that if the chief appoints a law enforcement officer to serve as the hearing officer must be of a rank higher than the rank of the law enforcement officer subject to the disciplinary action.
Discussion. Senator Carter.
I move the amendment.
Is there discussion? Senator Huff, yeah.
Is this starting to get us into the trial board, the bigger composition of that?
Well,
Yes.
It is, then I don't want to move this amendment because I want to look at other amendments and other ideas of how we're going to compose the trial boards. If this gets us to the one person, one trier of fact versus having a bigger board do it, I feel like that's a much bigger discussion and there's other amendments, so.
All right, Senator Carter, go ahead and, do you have something?
Well, with respect to what's already on the table, I was just going to clarify that with the current language in the bill, this just is whether or not you believe that the reviewer should be of the same rank or a higher rank. But I do understand what Senator Huff's saying, and it does, if people want, I'm already aware that people believe that this is the bone of contention, the area of conflict that we probably need to discuss further as a committee. So we can stop here at this point and pick this up after the break.
Second.
That's fair.
I'm hungry.
Okay. So know that, all right, so then when we come back, the bill, which we've added, what, 5 amendments on? 5 amendments, that's the basis for discussion. When we come out, we'll start. How many more amendments do we have to go from Senator Carter's packet?
I think just one.
Is this it? No, I think there's at least 2 more.
I've just been going through.
We'll pick up where we left off, and if there's something that's not related to the composition of, like, the reviewer or a potential review panel, whatever people are calling it, we'll handle everything else, and then come back to this issue. Okay. So I would say take your stuff because they're going to sanitize the room. All right, so we'll meet. Do you want to do like an hour after floor? Does that sound right?
Okay, we'll come at 2, we'll be here at 3. That gives us 2 hours to work through it. And then,
We can only be here for 2 hours anyway, so.
yeah, perfect.
Yeah. All right, so let's do that. All right, I'll see you all later. Thank you all.